I'm Ryan Grove. This is my wife Tiffany, and we're having fun talking about alternative ideas about the traditional narrative of history.
Well, I just wanted to respond to a few of the points you made. Uh, One of them was about Harriet Tubman again.
Oh no.
Uh, I just think that if she were a creation, that would be a great way to avoid talking about all the really relevant and important contributions by various members of the Underground Railroad. And in order to whitewash history in a way where only one person's name is really ever mentioned in regard to that time period. And then the other point I wanted to make was you have talked about a third set of tracks, and you were wondering why um, there would be that extra set there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say probably for tramways or
What's a tram?
cable cars.
What's a tramway?
Well, tramway is wooden rail where you put a cart and then you have a horse or a
Oh
human
yeah, that's what I described the first time
pulling.
we talked
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
And so those tracks, a lot of those probably were laid. And the other point was that during the Industrial Revolution, when Carnegie kind of took over the railroad making, um,
I mean, it's.
those tracks might have been laid by independent people. Also,
You
the
mean he was supporting or promoting steel tracks, right? Because he was selling
right. I
steel.
was gonna say they used to be cast iron when they would coat the wooden railways, and he did switch it over to steel because
Okay.
it was supposed to bear weight better, and they say it's a lot more durable.
Sure. Which it is.
So that might be that extra set of tracks that you're referring to, and why those are there. Um, I think that was basically all I really had to say about anything we've talked about so
Do
far.
you have anything new?
Uh, well, no.
Well, let's talk about giants then, since we kind of took up a chunk of yesterday. Um, Now, do you agree that throughout the 1800s and the early 1900s, that there have been more than 150 articles written in American newspapers reporting the discovery of remains of gigantic humans?
Yes, I've seen those old news articles.
Well, that was easy. So does that mean that you can comfortably say that yes, you believe that there were giants in the past?
Well, I guess it depends on how tall you're thinking. I mean, I can see people being 7 to 9 feet, definitely.
I can see 7, maybe 8. You know, especially if they have that
I would
super
think it would
rare
be
condition
really
of
hard to feed
gigantus. Or
them, but I guess we had all those buffalo and all that back then.
well, like I alluded to last night, evidently humans were bigger in number than giants, and so you get enough humans together. Then evidently they could defeat the giants, like the Native Americans, and a lot of and several bits
Like the Paiutes, I know they
of
have
lore.
mentioned.
They all talk about they
Sure.
got sick and tired of the giants that were in North America, and they all banded together, their tribes, on several occasions. Different tribes all got together and they went to war with these giants, these tribes of giants, and defeated them.
Yeah, there's.
Go
Oh,
ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say there's records of Josephus having, or he records this that he was alive while there was still the Museum of Giants in Rome. Although people later discredited that and said that they were the bones of mastodons or elephants.
Josephus, the historian, the Roman
Yes,
historian.
right. Yes, correct.
So that he said that there was a museum of giants in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I'll have to see if I can find anything on that.
I thought he said that there was cyclopses there. but it ended up being the horn of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
That socket, something like that.
Cool. That'd be fun. We watched a documentary about giant archaeology, or archaeology of giants, and it was primarily focused on United States or North America. And man, did you notice all of the evidences that were found in California particularly? I know it's something else. We also learned that the Ohio River Valley, southern Wisconsin, like around Madison,
New York,
Cahokia by St. Louis in Illinois, that there's been numerous discoveries in the last 150 years of people ranging anywhere from 7 feet to 12 feet, and in a couple instances, it's after looking at the skeletal remains that some of these things might even possibly have been as big as 20 feet tall, which is pretty astounding. Genetic similarity amongst these giant remains are that they, in a lot of cases, had 6 fingers, and they had 6 toes, and they had 2 sets of teeth. And that attribute, or those 2 attributes, were discovered in remains in California, in New York, and this region of the Ohio River Valley to Wisconsin to Illinois, this Indiana, this Midwestern region,
the Mississippi Basin,
has a lot of mounds, a lot of like burial mounds from the Native Americans that lived here thousands of years ago, and were supposed to have built these mounds. And there's a little bit of conjecture by one of the archaeologists taking tales that he had heard from Native Americans and representatives of various tribes, which said that when they killed these giants or defeated them in battle, it was too much work to actually dig holes to put their bodies in, and that's where the mound building came into play in these areas, where apparently there's a lot of conflict between the giants and the humans that were around here. So after there was a battle, they didn't drag the bodies anywhere, move them, especially the larger ones. They just stacked them, or actually just built mounds over where they lay after they were killed in battle. Something like that. That's pretty neat. So you saw this documentary, and we've seen others.
I would say that a lot of scientists would want to refute that because of the structure of the human body. The load bearing of such a great weight would be impossible structurally, is what a lot of scientists want to say.
Well, if the condition that created this bigness was giantism, that is true, because from what I understand in giantism, which is an extremely rare.
Usually a tumor on the thyroid gland.
On the pituitary gland.
Or yes, I'm sorry, that makes you to continue growing.
Mm-hmm. Where you just keep flooding your body with growth hormones, and it causes enlargement
Health
of
problems.
the head and the eye, or the hands and the feet, and that eventually, when they get too big, like what you said, the weight and the stress put on your
I believe they've
circulatory
tried to
system and
redo the calculations in order to make it more reasonable, and still thought that it was quite unlikely.
Well, as we know, there's more people alive today, obviously, than has ever been before, as far as we know, throughout our history. So the pool of potential cases, the pool that we have available to us to find and determine a percentage of how many people actually come down with giantism, it's pretty tiny number. Like
right. So
apparently
you think that
less than
there's
100 cases throughout all of America's history There's been less than 100 cases of giantism being the genetic defect in normal human
So you
beings.
believe that they're a different sort of species, or
Yeah, well, I don't know, but these finds, these discoveries, indicate a lot of time that there were entire tribes, maybe even cities, maybe towns filled with people with the same genetic.
And in Peru, those pointy skulls without the extra plate that they say, well, the plate got fused.
Oh yeah, those elongated
Yeah.
skulls. Yeah, that's crazy. That's pretty crazy. And North America is not the only place. All over the world, ancient histories and mythologies and religions all claim that humans had to deal with giants at some
I guess
point.
they say, oh, the Smithsonian Institute is hiding the giant bones because it contradicts the theory of evolution, which I don't know about that.
Well, the claim is that
Everybody's always trying to put things in a nice tidy box, but evolution
Right.
could still work and giants could still be real, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it would certainly be a piece of credibility awarded to the historical value of Genesis that isn't present in
Right, because a
conventional
lot
way
of
of
the places that
understanding
they're
history.
told to destroy in the Old Testament are geared at what the Bible does claim to be giants, that they were actually asked to destroy a couple of different races of the remnant giants.
Right, Genesis says
So-
that Goliath had 6 fingers. Now, what a coincidence that in Canaan and in that area of the world, and that the Bible would say that David went against a giant who had 6 fingers, and then we would find remains of giants with 6 fingers, many of them in North America. I mean, that's quite a connection. That's a pretty powerful connection.
Right, but you can't really prove that. That's the problem.
Uh,
We don't really know. But there is that myth throughout many cultures, that's for sure.
Well, there's an accusation that part of the reason the Smithsonian institution was created to begin with was in part
It's a
to
gatekeeper of information.
to actually seek out and acquire these giant remains all throughout the earlier half of the 20th century and the later half of the 19th century. Now, 150 articles ranging from like the New York Times to Boston, whatever. I don't know the names of old.
Boston Globe.
I don't even know if that was. I don't know how long that's been around, but yeah, maybe just all these. There's a lot of credible seeming newspaper organizations that just freely. It was like somebody's finding giant remains every day. There's tons of articles that have been written about it. So that's pretty weird.
Yeah, I think people have said that it was findings by people that just have a desire to prove the claim that giants exist, maybe even to support their ideology or religious beliefs. I would just say, wouldn't there be a lot of better things to do that besides saying that giants existed? I don't know. I just don't know why any Christian would fake something like that in order to
Promote their biblical worldview.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we are saying that the opposite side of the coin is
Mm-hmm.
that the powers that be take that seriously and are, for some ridiculous reason, acquiring and hiding or destroying all these evidences in order
I don't
to
know.
support their
Education
non-biblical
does
view.
seem to be pretty straightforward and linear in a way that it can't possibly be. So I do believe that we don't have all the facts as far as
Well, that's for darn sure.
What's gone on in all kinds of situations.
Hmm.
So
Well, I'm gonna look more into these giants, but just for the record, so you do believe that giants have been real at some point in history?
I
throughout history?
definitely do. Yeah, at least like 9 foot, 10 foot, because wasn't it Xerxes, who was a giant, and there's just a lot of people.
Claims,
I know people want to
Gilgamesh,
say, "Oh, that just
Nimrod.
means that they were powerful," and that was a story construct that was common in a lot of regions, but it just doesn't seem to make sense because the regions are so diverse and a lot of people really don't have much to gain from putting that kind of a spin on it or whatever.
Uh,
It just doesn't seem to make sense, that excuse either. I don't know.
this doesn't prove anything by any stretch, but it is curious that in some Egyptian hieroglyphics, when they are showing like their leader, that the leader seems to be their king, whatever, seems to be significantly larger than
Yeah, Nefertiti and wasn't it Akhenaten? Isn't that the depictions you're referring to? And they have the larger oval head and they're much larger than their
Yeah.
constituency, who are all very small.
And I understand. Yeah, I understand that it could be that the hieroglyph is trying to exaggerate emphasis on the importance of the king and diminishing the importance of the people that served him.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a reason for that. But you know, something to think about. Remember Saint Christopher? Many of Saint Christopher's contemporaries described him as being between 12 to 20 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Contemporaries.
And St. George slayed dragons.
You know, there's a big prejudice in modern society to discredit things that are old, and just right out the gate when they're presented with new information, that you reject the old as being inferior because we have better technology and smarter people and we got more information now, and that newer stuff is more credible. But maybe I've explained this before. I think closer to the original source also has some value. You know, the game telephone, whatever, that clearly displays that phenomenon where if I whisper a word to you, you're the first person I tell it to, you're more likely to correctly hear and remember the specific word that I started. And as you pass the word down from person to person, you know how it changes into some other word, how there's mistakes in hearing it, and it
Of
changes.
course, honey.
So there's that too. There's that too.
Most people know how that game works.
Well, that's good, because that's a fun game. And a lot of people should
That
play
was
it
a
more.
fun game.
Mhm. All right. Well, I guess we're done for now.
Okay.
All right. Until next time.